At some point in the night of February 28, 2026, Iranian air defense operators started losing the picture, not all at once, one system at a time, radar by radar, node by node. What had been a coherent layered air defense network, one of the densest in the region, and decades in the building, began going dark the way a string of lights goes out when the power cuts. By the time dawn came, Iranian airspace had effectively stopped being defended. 30 aircraft did this. None of them appeared on Iranian radar screens. They were not jamming the defenses, they were destroying them, physically, with missiles. While Iranian operators were still trying to locate what they were supposed to be shooting at, by the time Iran understood what was happening, it was already over. Everything that came in behind, the B-2s, the B-1Bs, and the cruise missiles, flew into airspace that was unguarded. That is what the F-35 actually does in a real war. And here is how 30 of them opened the sky over an entire country in a single night. At 1:15 in the morning Eastern Time on February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel opened the largest coordinated air campaign in the Middle East in over 2 decades. Within the first 24 hours, United States Central Command reported over 1,000 targets hit across Iran. By hour 72, that number passed 1,700. Those included missile facilities, command centers, air defense nodes, naval assets, and communication networks. But before any of that was possible, before a single B-2 crossed into Iranian airspace, before the first Tomahawk left a destroyer in the Arabian Sea, before the strike packages that would eventually hit over 1,000 targets even got close to their objectives, someone had to go in and make it survivable for everyone else. That job went to the F-35. Approximately 30 United States Air Force F-35 aircraft deployed from RAF Lakenheath in England and from the Vermont Air National Guard, alongside Marine Corps F-35 aircraft flying from the carrier Abraham Lincoln. Israeli F-35 Adirs ran a parallel effort. Their mission was suppression of enemy air defenses. They would walk into the most sophisticated radar and missile network in the Middle East. They had to find every node and kill them in sequence before the system could adapt, without being detected long enough to get shot. Within 8 hours, Iran's integrated air defense network was effectively neutralized over the main strike corridors. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what they were walking into. Iran did not build a handful of isolated missile batteries and call it a day. What the United States and Israel faced on February 28th was a system. Russian-supplied S-300 long-range interceptor systems, domestically built Bavar 373 missiles designed to fill the gaps the SS-300 systems left, layers of early warning radar extending hundreds of miles in every direction, and a fiber-optic communication backbone connecting the nodes so that taking out one piece does not blind the others. This network was not an afterthought. It was built over 20 years with a specific purpose: to make American aircraft pay an unacceptable price for entering Iranian airspace. Iranian engineers and Russian advisors studied American tactics, American radar signatures, American strike packages. They knew what an F-15 looked like on their screens. They knew the flight profiles of cruise missiles. They built the coverage to defeat all of it. The problem they could not solve was an aircraft they could not see. Here is what most coverage of this operation does not explain. Suppressing an air defense network sounds like a single action. It is not. It is a sequencing problem. Every radar node has a coverage zone. Every node communicates with others. If you take them out in the wrong order, the surviving nodes adapt their coverage to compensate, and you have made the problem harder. If you take too long, the operators figure out what's happening and go into a defensive posture that makes them much harder to kill. And if you're flying a conventional aircraft the whole time, an aircraft their radar can see, you're in a race from the moment you enter their airspace. The clock runs against you from the first second. The F-35 removes the race. Stealth means the clock doesn't start running until you decide it does. The aircraft maps every radar emission in range while remaining invisible to the systems it's cataloging. The pilot sees the entire electromagnetic picture, every node, every coverage zone, every seam where the network is thinnest. Then the aircraft fires anti-radiation missiles that home on radar emissions. Once a radar transmits, the missile has a target. Once the missile fires, the operator has a choice: keep transmitting and die, or go silent. Going silent means going blind. And a blind air defense system is no air defense system at all. The F-35 was doing this on February 28th, while Iranian operators were watching screens that showed nothing. No contacts, no threats, normal background noise. And then, one by one, their systems started going offline. That combination, the ability to see everything while being seen by nothing, is what makes the F-35 the only aircraft built for this specific job. Every other platform that performs this mission has to accept detection as part of the cost of doing business. Wild Weasel F-16 fighters are fast, brave, and effective. They also show up on radar from the moment they cross the border. The entire mission becomes a question of whether they can kill the radar before the radar kills them. That is not a hypothetical risk. Pilots flying that mission have been shot down doing it. History is full of Wild Weasel crews who flew in and did not come back. In Epic Fury, that did not happen. Not because the threats were not real, but because the aircraft doing the suppression work was not on anyone's screen from the moment it entered Iranian airspace to the moment it left. It's worth pausing on what it took to build a machine that can do this. The F-35 program is, by any measure, the most expensive weapons program in the history of the United States Department of Defense. It totaled $2.1 trillion in lifetime costs across a 94-year program lifespan. Development delays ran years beyond schedule. Unit costs triggered annual congressional hearings. For over a decade, the debate about whether this aircraft was worth what it cost was a reliable feature of Washington budget fights. Critics argued it was too expensive to buy in real numbers, too compromised, trying to do too many things, too complex to maintain at scale. On the night of February 28th, 30 of them walked undetected through Iran's air defense network and dismantled it in 8 hours. The debate about value has a data point now. 6 days later, it got a second one. On March 4th, 2026, an Israeli F-35 Adir, flying over Tehran, shot down an Iranian Yak Yak 130 combat aircraft. The engagement lasted a few seconds. The Iranian jet was flying a patrol mission over the capital, not a direct threat engagement, but airborne and armed in contested airspace, when the Israeli pilot identified it and fired. The Yak 130 came down in mountains north of Tehran. 2 ejections were visible on footage that emerged shortly afterward. This was the first time in the 25-year history of the F-35 that the aircraft had shot down a manned fighter in combat. 25 years, hundreds of billions spent. Every air force that flies it spent years wondering whether the stealth and the sensors and the targeting systems would actually perform against a real adversary in a real engagement. Not a training range, not a simulation, but an actual fight over a hostile capital with lives on the line. The answer came in a few seconds over Tehran. It is worth being precise about what the Iranian Air Force actually put in the air. The Yak 130 is a Russian-designed light attack and training aircraft. Iran received its first examples from Russia in 2023, one of the most modern jets in an air force that otherwise still flies American F-14 and F-4 models built in the 1970s. It is not an F-35. It is not a Su-35. It is not the most demanding air combat test the F-35 will ever face. But that is not the point. The point is that Iran's most capable available jet went airborne over its own capital during an active strike campaign, inside what was supposed to be a defended kill zone, and it was gone in seconds. The Israeli pilot identified it, fired, and was already moving on before the aircraft hit the ground. The F-35 was over Tehran, not sneaking through at the edge of radar range, over the capital, operating freely, doing exactly what its designers promised it could do in exactly the environment its critics said it would never survive. That is the achievement, not the specific kill, the freedom of movement that produced it. And the fact that 25 years of debate about whether this aircraft was worth building ended not in a congressional hearing room, but in a few seconds of airspace over Tehran. The result of all of this, the suppression work on the opening night, the air superiority established in the days that followed, the systematic collapse of Iranian defenses, changed the physics of the entire campaign. When the air defense network is intact, every strike package is a high-risk calculation. You plan around the missile envelopes, you route aircraft to avoid the densest coverage, you accept that some percentage of what you send in might not come back. You use expensive standoff weapons because getting inside the defended zone costs too much. When the network is gone, the calculation inverts. B-2s deliver precision weapons without surface-to-air missile interference. B-1Bs run sustained high-volume strike sorties. Strike Eagles and Super Hornets work targets that would have been impossible 24 hours earlier. Tomahawks fly uncontested corridors. The entire force becomes more effective because the thing protecting those targets no longer exists. The F-35's contribution to epic fury is not measured in targets it personally destroyed. It is measured in every target the rest of the coalition hit that it could not have reached without the F-35 going in first. The aircraft already has a successor in development. In March 2025, the United States Air Force awarded Boeing the contract for the F-47, the next-generation air dominance fighter, designed to operate in environments even more contested than what the F-35 faced over Iran. More survivable, longer range, a combat radius over 1,000 nautical miles, built for the threat environment of the next decade rather than this one. The Air Force plans to buy more than 185 of them. The logic is identical to what the F-35 proved in Epic Fury: go in first, unseen, and open the sky for everything that follows. The threat the F-47 is being designed to handle is a harder problem than Iran. The answer the Air Force is building looks exactly the same. The radars that went dark on the night of February 28th did not go dark on their own. 30 aircraft that nobody detected walked through a defense network, 20 years in the building, and took it apart node by node. They did it before dawn. They did it without losing a jet to enemy fire. They did it invisibly. Everything that followed, every bomb, every missile, every sortie that entered Iranian airspace without being shot at, started there.